Tell me in one sentence right now. Name the moment they thought they won. Type it below. Write it like you mean it. Give me the exact thing they said, the exact door that closed, the exact sentence that made you small. Leave it in the comments. I want to hear it. Let the world know what they tried to steal. I have been watching the way they circled you, slow, confident, certain. I saw the looks passed in rooms where your name was a joke. I heard the whispered plans like weather reports, calculated, dry, inevitable. They treated you like a habit to be broken, like a resource to be spent. They thought they were architects of your silence. They believed that by cutting you down they were securing their story. They were wrong. This is not the beginning of a sermon. This is the beginning of a reckoning, tender and terrible at once. The silence you felt was not because I was absent. It was because I was containing my answer, quietening thunder so that when it came, it would be deliberate, not panicked. I am not hasty with justice. I am precise. I do not move like the world moves. I move like a hand that has learned the exact pressure a bruise takes before it breaks open into healing. You have been wounded in ways the papers won't print and the polite mouths won't name. You were stripped in private, repaired in public, told to smile through stitches. There is dignity in surviving, yes, but there is also danger in making survival your only story. You learned how to carry your own funeral and clap for yourself afterwards. You thought that because you kept breathing, because you kept showing up, the offense would be neutralized. It wasn't. It accumulated. It lodged like a stone behind your ribs, heavy and real. They will tell you their hands were clean. They will tell you they acted for reasons higher than cruelty. They will offer explanations like bandages, flimsy and warm. Don't be fooled by their explanations. Truth is not negotiated by eloquence. The truth is simple. Someone crossed a line they were never meant to cross. They touched what was consecrated, mistaking it for clay. They called what they did necessary, or tough love, or realism. They were naming their haste, not your fault. Listen to me closely. I do not announce every response with trumpets. Sometimes I answer with a look. Sometimes I answer with a turn of events, so quiet that only those who paid attention will notice. I have been preparing a response that is not revenge dressed as vindication, but restoration dressed as mercy. I will not stoop to the enemy's noisy ways. I will outlast their noise and reveal the measure of their smallness in the space they left between your wounds and your rise. You think the enemy's touch was final because it was public. Publicity is a spotlight. It is not the only thing that measures consequence. I measure by what remains true when the cameras go off. I count the things that cannot be bought back with apology or ads. I remember the prayers you whispered when your voice was raw. I keep ledger entries the world will never print. The nights you sat on the floor and told me you were tired of pretending. The mornings you made coffee without tasting it. The afternoons you rehearsed a smile so it would look effortless in the frame. Those are not losses to me. They are evidence. There is a difference between being struck and being fashioned. What they thought they struck down, I was shaping. The blows were not friendly, they were formative. I allowed the pressure because I knew what would be extracted under it. Not bitterness, but capacity. Not a weapon against the world, but a well of compassion for the world. Not an armor that isolates, but a mantle that fits without suffocating. You think pain made you smaller. I say, pain made the space where your purpose would later fit perfectly. Do not confuse my patience with impotence. The enemy's bravado is loud because it is shallow. I do not rush to prove my power the way they rush to prove their strength. I will not posture, I will author. There is a difference. When I move, the sequence is surgical. What was taken is returned as testimony. What was shamed becomes sanctified. What was meant to break you becomes the instrument through which blessing will run. I will tell you now what they will not. The moment they touched you, they entered a covenant with consequences they cannot imagine. By reaching for you, they reached for the promise I placed on you. They tried to pluck a string that is tuned to destiny. In pulling it, they played the chord that will announce their own undoing. Their regret will not be loud. It will be quiet and unbearable. The kind of regret that lives in restlessness, in sleeplessness, in the sudden memory of a kindness they denied. The sharpest justice is not the kind that shouts. It's the kind that unravels the comfortable, that makes a man remember every small cruelty and taste the bitter fruit of his choices. Tell me, what did they take that you want back more than anything? Name it. The words matter. They are the first stones you throw back into the river where your life once flowed. Speak them. They will not be the last act, but they are the first insurgency. Naming is resistance. Saying the wound out loud disentangles it from shame. It pins the injustice to a ledger and invites me to write the response. And as you name, do not assume the response will look like what you imagine. You may imagine fiery vindication, social collapse, an apology that fits on billboards. I may give you none of that. I may give you something quieter, truer. I may grant you peace that returns after the fact as proof that the wound did not define you. I may restore relationships, or I may make space so new ones can enter. I may call people to account in ways that do not ruin a life, but reveal a heart. I may let the enemy see his reflection and not like what he becomes. There will come a day, perhaps sooner than you expect, perhaps slower, because I am patient with the slow work of character. When the ones who thought they had written your obituary will have to explain why you are still here, why you are more luminous than before, why their words now sound like the fearful rustling of leaves before a storm. They will have to account for the way kindness bends around cruelty and becomes stronger, how generosity grows even where scarcity once lived. Their arrogance will be the fault line under which their buildings tremble. But until that day, keep guarding something I gave you to keep, your heart. Not to harden it, but to keep it from becoming the enemy's weapon. Guard it with rest, with truth, with prayer, with friends who speak like balm. Let your anger spend itself on building, not on burning. Let your grief be a teacher, not an altar. When you are tempted to answer with the same bluntness that was used against you, remember that real power is exercised by the one who can afford to be kind. I am not promising you a painless script. I am promising you a purpose that bends pain into promise. I am not promising that the enemy won't try again. I am promising that every attempt will be measured and returned in a currency they cannot spend. Your integrity, your peace, your capacity to love. They thought they were stealing from you. They stole the raw material that I used to craft crowns. So speak. Name the moment. Write it in the comments. Let the world hear what they tried to take. Let me hear you say it so I can begin the quiet, inexorable work of answering. The storm is coming, but not the kind you fear. It will be a storm that washes clean the ledger, that rearranges tables, that places your name where it belongs. Hold fast, keep breathing, keep naming, and watch, because when heaven moves in a way that bends the enemy, regret is the only sound left to them. They thought they could touch you and walk away untouched. They didn't know who they were reaching for. They didn't realize the fingerprints they left on you would become evidence, not against you, but against themselves. When they plotted, when they whispered, when they decided that your name was a ladder they could step on to climb higher, they didn't see that the ground beneath them was already cracking. Because when the enemy lays a hand on what I've anointed, the story changes ownership. I remember the exact moment they crossed the line. I remember the look in their eyes, that small spark of satisfaction, that silent, finally, as they thought they'd managed to break you. They mistook your exhaustion for defeat, your silence for surrender. But child, silence isn't surrender when I'm in it. It's strategy. I don't always roar when they expect me to. Sometimes I whisper long enough for them to expose themselves completely. They thought your season of struggle was my absence, but it was my setup. When they touched you, they touched covenant. They didn't reach for a random soul, they reached for a vessel marked by my promise. The enemy doesn't always appear as a beast. Sometimes it comes wearing help, wrapped in friendship, cloaked in approval. Sometimes it disguises itself as opportunity. You didn't miss the signs. You trusted because that's what love does. You believed because your heart was built for light, not suspicion. And that's why I'm intervening now, not because you're perfect, but because you were pure in your intent. You didn't deserve what they did. You didn't deserve to be mocked, to be betrayed, to have your kindness turned into ammunition. But I saw it all, the text that twisted your words, the meeting where your name was weaponized, the night you lay awake wondering if any of it was real. Every injustice has a timestamp in heaven. Every tear you buried was recorded. Every heartbreak became a case file in my hands. You don't have to defend yourself anymore. The evidence defends you. They thought touching you would be consequence-free because I didn't move right away. They forgot that I measure time differently. When I delay, it's not neglect, it's multiplication. I let them dig deep, thinking they were burying you, not realizing they were digging their own hole. I let them talk long enough for their lies to sound like confession. I let them laugh long enough for their laughter to sound like fear. I let them believe they won, because nothing exposes pride like peace that refuses to break. You kept asking me, why won't you stop them? But I was never just stopping them, I was studying them, every motive, every plan, every detail. The deeper they went, the greater the return will be. You see, I don't just balance scales, I rebuild them. I don't just restore what was lost, I multiply it until it embarrasses the thief. And I want you to know this. I didn't just watch the moment they hurt you. I watched what came after. I saw the way you refused to curse them. I saw how you bit your tongue when you could have exposed them. I saw how you chose peace when rage felt easier. That restraint wasn't weakness, it was proof of royalty. Only those who carry my spirit can stay calm while hell shouts. That's why you're not just surviving this, you're qualifying through it. The enemy doesn't regret the attack yet, but it will. Because touching you activated something they can't undo. There's a law written in the fabric of the spirit. Whatever rises against what's consecrated will crumble by its own momentum. They wanted to see you break, they'll watch you build. They wanted you humiliated, they'll see you elevated. They wanted your silence, they'll hear your testimony. I don't need you to plot revenge. I just need you to stand still long enough for me to show you what holy retaliation looks like. It doesn't look like destruction. It looks like restoration so radiant that the enemy can't look at you without seeing their own failure reflected back. They will wish they'd never touched you, not because of what happens to them, but because of what happens through you. The blessing that comes next will be so visible that even they will have to say, surely God was with them. They thought they were silencing you. They didn't know they were amplifying you. They thought they were stealing your peace. They didn't know they were planting your purpose. Now watch me turn their insult into introduction. Watch me turn their rejection into your recognition. Watch me turn their attack into announcement. Because when they touched you, they triggered the very thing they were trying to prevent, your unveiling. They will regret it. Not because you'll curse them, but because you'll forgive them. Not because you'll fall, but because you'll rise. Not because you'll fight, but because you'll flourish. So hold your ground, keep your silence, let me work. The story didn't end when they touched you, it began. You thought I forgot about the delay, didn't you? That long stretch of waiting where prayers echoed like they were thrown into a canyon, where answers came slower than your breaking point, where silence felt like punishment. You called it denial, I called it development. You begged me to intervene, but I wasn't ignoring you. I was orchestrating a response so precise that even time had to bow before it. Every delay you cursed under your breath was me holding the line until your foundation was unshakable. Because I don't build deliverance on fragile faith. I let storms come to test your roots, not to destroy you, but to reveal that you could still stand when everything else fell. I let the fire reach close enough to refine you, not to consume you. You thought I was late, but child, I was protecting you from premature elevation. You can't reign if your peace still depends on applause. I saw how the waiting drained you. I saw the disappointment settle in your bones. You told yourself, maybe this is it. Maybe this is all there's going to be. But no, this was never the end. It was the stretch between prophecy and proof. It was the space where faith stops being a word and becomes a heartbeat. Delay is not denial, it's disguise. It's how I hide my greatest work from the enemy's surveillance. When you thought nothing was happening, everything was being aligned. You couldn't see it, but I was moving names, dates, people, and moments into position. I was silencing rooms where your name was being mishandled. I was exposing intentions disguised as opportunities. I was removing counterfeit blessings that would have rotted your future from the inside out. You kept asking me, why did you let them touch me? Why didn't you stop it sooner? Because, beloved, sometimes pain must reveal what comfort hides. Sometimes the hand that wounds you teaches you more about my protection than the blessing that holds you. If I had stopped every hit, you would have never discovered how much I placed inside you. You would have mistaken fragility for faith. I didn't delay to test you. I delayed to transform you. When you thought you were losing everything, you were actually shedding everything that couldn't survive where I was taking you. Every unanswered prayer, every missed call, every rejection, that was me redrawing the borders of your destiny. I know you wanted speed, but I wanted strategy. You wanted instant justice. I wanted eternal impact. And now, finally, the waiting is ending. Not because I've changed my mind, but because you've changed your heart. You stopped chasing what hurt you. You stopped begging people to see you. You stopped needing the approval that once owned you. That's when the delay lost its purpose, when you learned to live in peace before the promise. That's what I was waiting for all along. You thought delay was my punishment, but it was my preparation. I was letting you grow roots deep enough to hold the weight of what's coming. You prayed for elevation, but I won't raise you where wind can knock you down. I had to teach you the strength of stillness. I had to make sure you wouldn't mistake exposure for validation. You learned to stop proving yourself, and that was the moment I started unveiling you. Now look around. The very things that left you are making room for what's meant for you. The very doors that closed are now guarding your peace. The same people who overlooked you are about to witness what they couldn't see when you were hidden. The delay was never a detour. It was insulation. I was shielding you from being seen before you were ready to shine. The enemy called it a setback. I called it strategy. He thought he was buying time. I was buying testimony. He thought you'd break in the waiting. You were building capacity in the waiting. And now the season of silence is shifting. The waiting room is becoming a delivery room. The prayers you thought expired are about to bloom in front of you, right on time. You'll understand soon why I waited. You'll understand why I stayed quiet. You'll see why every no had to stand until it became a yes that wouldn't crush you. The delay was never denial. It was divine timing disguised as stillness. And now that you've survived it, the enemy will regret every moment he mocked your patience. Because you didn't just wait, you grew. And what grows in silence is unstoppable once I say, now. You've been asking me why pain had to come dressed like betrayal, why the wounds had to feel so personal, why the attack had to come from hands you once held. And I know, child, I know. Pain doesn't just hurt, it confuses. It makes you question the point of everything, even me. But hear me clearly now, the enemy never understood pain the way I designed it. He thought pain was a weapon. I made it a womb. You see, pain was never meant to be punishment. It was meant to be process. The enemy wanted it to destroy your faith, but I used it to deepen your roots. He wanted you to give up, but I used it to make you unbreakable. Every attack that came against you was training disguised as tragedy. Every heartbreak was a harvest waiting for light. I never let a single tear fall without collecting it, without turning it into instruction, without weaving it into something the enemy couldn't touch. The enemy doesn't understand that pain carries permission for me to move in ways comfort never could. Pain opens doors comfort would never knock on. Pain breaks the illusions you made about strength so I can rebuild you with the real thing. You've been living like pain was proof that I left, but it was proof that I trusted you to be strong enough to become something new. Do you remember how you prayed for purpose? That's how it came. Not as applause, not as clarity, but as breaking, because I can't fill what's already full. And sometimes, to make room for your calling, I have to let the things you idolized collapse. That's not cruelty, that's construction. The enemy thought he could use pain as his greatest instrument, but I've been using it as my paintbrush. Every scar has been a stroke on a canvas you can't yet see. You call it suffering. I call it symmetry. The pain that bent you out of shape was the same pain that carved the shape you needed for where I'm taking you next. Do you know why I let the wound go deep? Because shallow pain only produces shallow faith. If the cut had been lighter, you would have healed without transformation. You would have kept your pride, your illusions, your need for control. But deep pain demands surrender. It teaches you to depend on me, not your logic. It teaches you to breathe even when it hurts. It teaches you to pray, not for answers, but for endurance. And that endurance, that quiet, trembling strength, is what the enemy can't touch. He can attack your position, but not your posture. He can wound your reputation, but not your revelation. He can take things from your hands, but not from your heart. Because pain, once touched by purpose, becomes power. You thought you were breaking, you were birthing. You thought it was over, it was beginning. You thought it was punishment, it was proof. Proof that you carry something too valuable to leave untested. Proof that I saw in you what you couldn't see in yourself. Proof that pain doesn't end you, it expands you. The enemy doesn't get it. He keeps striking, hoping you'll stay bitter, not realizing bitterness is a luxury you can no longer afford. He doesn't know that every hit he lands only presses more oil out of you, oil that can't be counterfeited, oil that comes from intimacy with suffering, oil that glows even in darkness. You see, pain isn't the opposite of blessing, it's the birthplace of it. It's how heaven introduces destiny to earth. It's how I teach joy to grow teeth. It's how I turn victims into vessels. So stop resenting what was really your refining. Stop mourning over the lessons that were always meant to strengthen you. You didn't lose, you learned. You didn't break, you became pliable. You didn't fail, you were formed. And now that pain has finished its work, watch what happens next. The same wounds that made you cry will one day make you wise. The same story that once embarrassed you will become the one you tell to heal others. The same nights that broke you will be the nights you point to when people ask, "How did you get this strong?" The enemy used pain to stop you. I used pain to start you. And that's the thing he'll never understand, that every time he hurt you, he only helped me build you. You thought the breaking was the end, but I was just beginning. You called it destruction. I called it construction. You saw something sacred being shattered, but I was sculpting you not as punishment, but as preparation. There's a kind of strength that only comes from the crushing. It's not the kind you see in the spotlight. It's the kind that grows in secret, in rooms where no one applauds, in moments where the world stops checking in. You thought no one was watching while you fell apart, but I was there, close enough to feel your heartbeat trembling under my hand. I wasn't fixing you. I was fortifying you. You prayed for strength, and I answered with pressure. You asked me for growth, and I gave you ground to break through. You asked to be used, and I allowed you to be pressed, because only what has been pressed can pour. I didn't come to make your life easy. I came to make your life unshakable. And that doesn't happen when everything is comfortable. It happens when everything you trusted collapses, and you finally discover that I'm still here, unmovable. They thought the crushing would end you, but it only concentrated what was inside you. Oil doesn't flow until the olive is crushed. Grape juice doesn't become wine until it's pressed. Diamonds aren't formed without heat, and warriors aren't born without battles. The enemy thought the pressure would silence you, but it made your spirit resonate louder. Every tear was tuning you for the next season. Your cry was becoming your sound. You said, "Lord, I can't take it anymore." And I said, "You're right, the version of you that could be broken by this can't, but the one I'm raising through this can." Because the crushing was never meant to destroy you, it was meant to reveal you. I was removing what couldn't carry the weight of your next blessing. The insecurities, the dependencies, the shallow faith that only praised me when life made sense. I was taking you past religion into relationship, past performance into presence. You asked me to bless you, but you didn't know blessing comes with capacity. So I built capacity through pressure. I stretched your heart until it could hold more compassion. I stretched your patience until it could survive disappointment. I stretched your hope until it could shine even in the dark. The crushing didn't just produce endurance, it produced empathy. It didn't just give you victory, it gave you vision. It didn't just make you tough, it made you true. And here's what I want you to know, nothing crushed in my hands stays broken. I gather every fragment and build something even more whole than before. I recycle pain into purpose. I forge peace out of pressure. I weave beauty from the very threads of betrayal. So the next time you feel the weight closing in, don't ask me to remove it too quickly. Ask me what it's forming. Ask me what oil is coming from it. Ask me who it's going to heal once you rise from it. The crushing was the classroom. The pain was the mentor. And now, the very strength you prayed for is standing where your weakness once was. The enemy thought the crushing would bury you. He didn't know it was planting season. And now, the same ground that held your tears is about to hold your harvest. You have no idea how many eyes have been watching you in the shadows. Not just the ones who doubted you, the ones who were curious to see if you would break. the ones who quietly bet against your comeback, the ones who pretended to support you while waiting for your silence to confirm their assumptions. Heaven saw them all. Hell did too. Every move, every whisper, every smirk recorded. Not because I needed evidence, but because I wanted witnesses. Do you understand that your pain has been public for a reason? The trial wasn't about humiliation, it was about demonstration. I was showing both realms, seen and unseen, what faith looks like under fire. I let the watchers stay close, because I needed them to see what endurance looks like when it's anointed. You thought you were alone in the wilderness, but it wasn't isolation. It was an audience you didn't know you had. There are angels who stood silent because they were under instruction not to interfere. They wanted to fight for you, but I told them, wait, watch. Because I was doing something in you that couldn't be done for you. I was proving to every power that your faith wasn't rented, that your love wasn't dependent on outcomes, that your hope wasn't cheap. And hell watched too. They laughed when you stumbled. They called your name in mockery, not realizing that even their laughter was prophecy. Because every sneer became part of the record that will testify against them. Every word they spoke in arrogance will soon echo back as regret. You think I didn't notice the way they looked at you, the ones who claimed to know me but used my name to cut you, the ones who hid envy behind theology, bitterness behind advice. I saw them. I let them speak because I needed them to show their hearts before I elevate yours. Some people had to reveal themselves before I could reveal you. The watchers in the shadows aren't just people, they're patterns. Old versions of you that hoped you'd relapse. Old voices that said, you'll never make it out. But here you are, breathing proof that what tried to bury you underestimated your root system. You are still standing, and that's a sermon without words. Do you know what's beautiful about being watched? It means your story matters. It means heaven is using your life as a stage to prove something to hell, that grace still wins, that forgiveness still frees, that obedience still works even when it hurts. You've been performing miracles simply by surviving with your integrity intact. You didn't need a pulpit to preach. Your perseverance was the message. Every time you got up after being hit, the watchers learned something. Every time you blessed instead of cursed, they lost a little confidence in their hatred. Every time you smiled while bleeding, you made heaven proud. The audience of your pain has no idea what's about to unfold. They think they've seen your story, but they've only seen the rehearsal. I kept them near not to shame you, but to document the glory. Because what comes next must be seen. The restoration, the recompense, the resurrection, it's all going to happen in front of the same eyes that saw your breaking. That's how I write endings, public redemption for public pain. So don't resent the watchers. Let them look. Let them whisper. Let them speculate. Because soon they'll be the first to testify that I was with you all along. Some of them will come back repentant, confused, even trembling. And you will not gloat. You will smile. You will bless them. Because that's what sets you apart. You didn't need their downfall to feel vindicated. You just needed peace. Remember this, not every silence from me is neglect. Sometimes it's a setup for spectacle. I let the stage grow dark, so the light of your eyes can't be mistaken for coincidence. You've been surrounded all this time by both enemies and angels, and both have been learning who you are. The ones who mocked will soon marvel. The ones who doubted will soon declare. The ones who watched will soon witness. And when they do, don't point to yourself. Point to me, because it was never about proving your worth. It was about proving my word. The watchers in the shadows will see it. They'll see the quiet strength, the radiance that came from ruin, the peace that came after pain. And they'll understand it wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was God. And He was with you the whole time. You remember those nights when heaven went quiet, don't you? When you pressed your face into the pillow and the only answer you got was your own breathing. When the prayers that once felt electric started to sound rehearsed. When you looked at the ceiling and said, "Are you still there?" And all you got back was stillness so heavy it made the air feel thick. You thought I had gone. You thought maybe you'd finally broken something unfixable. But that quiet, that unbearable quiet, was never absence. It was the sound of me working in stealth. When I go silent, I'm not far away. I'm closer than you can handle. I quiet the noise because I need you to stop hearing everything else first. The silence wasn't rejection. It was recalibration. You were tuning your heart to a new frequency, one that couldn't be reached through noise. I wasn't ignoring you, I was refining how you listen. You asked me to speak louder, but I wanted to teach you to recognize me in whispers. Because if you can hear me in stillness, no chaos will ever drown me out again. You thought my quiet was coldness, but I was watching. I watched you hold on when every reason to quit was valid. I watched you stay kind when bitterness was begging to be your language. I watched you get up, even if it was only to sit on the floor again. And while you thought I was silent, I was writing your name on new walls, places your pain could never have reached if you had stayed where you were comfortable. Silence is not empty, it's full of construction. You can't hear me over the hammer and nails. When you felt nothing, I was building everything: endurance, humility, discernment, authority. I don't teach those through comfort. I teach them through quiet, because quiet exposes what applause hides. Quiet shows you who you are when no one is watching. Quiet builds depth, and depth is what keeps blessing from breaking you later. Do you remember that one night you said, "If you're real, say something, anything"? I did. I said, "Breathe." That was me. You thought you were talking to the ceiling. You were talking to eternity. I answered you with life itself. You wanted fireworks, but I gave you breath because I knew you needed something you could hold onto every second. You didn't need a miracle. You needed evidence that you still mattered. Breath was my answer. You are still breathing, that's proof enough. You asked, why does faith have to hurt like this? Because faith isn't built in comfort, it's built in contradiction. Faith grows in the tension between what you feel and what you know. You don't learn trust when I speak constantly. You learn it when I don't. That's when your spirit starts repeating what your mind forgot, that I'm faithful, that I'm working, that silence isn't the same as absence. And I know the quiet made you question your worth. You wondered if maybe you were too much, too flawed, too complicated to love. But no, child, you were never too much for me. I made you with all that depth. I made you sensitive on purpose. I made you someone who feels deeply, because only those who feel deeply can carry deep things. The silence didn't mean I was tired of you. It meant I was trusting you with stillness, the kind only mature souls can survive. The truth is, my quiet was an answer all along. It was me teaching you that peace doesn't always announce itself. It sneaks in. It arrives like a sigh. It doesn't argue, it doesn't explain, it just is. And now, because you survived the quiet, you'll recognize my presence anywhere, even in storms, even in loss, even in waiting. You didn't fail the silence. You passed it. You stayed. You endured. And that's why the silence is about to break. Not because I was gone, but because you're finally ready to hear me in a new way. The next sound won't come as thunder. It will come as release. The next word won't come as command. It will come as comfort. The quiet has done its work. It's stripped away the noise, the idols, the need for proof. You don't need me to shout anymore. Now you know my tone. You don't need constant signs. Now you know my scent. You don't need me to prove my love. Now you carry it in your breath. The nights that seemed endless are about to end. The stillness that felt cruel is about to sing. And the silence that felt like punishment will soon be remembered as the season where you met me most honestly, not as a faraway God, but as the still, steady presence that never left your side. You didn't see it happen, but there was a moment when everything began to turn. Heaven doesn't announce reversals with fanfare. It shifts atmospheres quietly, like dawn sneaking up on night. You thought you were still in the fight, still bleeding, still outnumbered. But while you were sleeping, I rewrote the story. While you were praying and seeing no movement, I was rearranging what was buried. The reversal didn't begin when you shouted Amen. It began the second you refused to curse me in your pain. The moment you stayed faithful when faith felt foolish, the tide began to move. You didn't hear the sound of chains falling because they broke one link at a time, quietly, precisely. You didn't see the enemy's hand slip because it happened in shadows, but make no mistake, he lost his grip. You're standing in the aftermath of a battle that's already been decided. I told the winds to change direction. I whispered to doors that refused to open. I called back opportunities that were taken too soon and told them, now. I released favor that had been held hostage by false accusations. And as I did, everything the enemy stole started trembling in his grasp, begging to be returned. The reversal doesn't always look like victory at first. Sometimes it looks like peace in places that used to make you panic. Sometimes it looks like laughter returning quietly to your chest. Sometimes it looks like running into someone who hurt you and realizing they no longer have any power over you. That's how you know it started. The evidence begins inside before it manifests outside. You thought you lost years. You didn't. You gained weight, spiritual, emotional, eternal. You thought you were being delayed. You weren't. You were being timed perfectly. You thought you were buried. You weren't. You were being planted in ground that could sustain you. Do you remember how I said vengeance is mine? This is what it looks like. Not blood, not thunder, not lightning. It looks like grace blooming where bitterness once lived. It looks like peace thriving where fear once ruled. It looks like people who thought you'd never recover having to watch you glow with the kind of joy they can't explain. The reversal is not for revenge. It's for revelation. They need to see that the God they doubted still reigns. They need to see that what they called finished was actually being refined. They need to see that touching what I've anointed only ever leads to regret. I have not forgotten the words they spoke over you, the careless curses disguised as advice, the predictions of failure they made with certainty. Watch how I turn their words into soil for your blessings. Their doubt fertilized your destiny. Their mockery became momentum. The more they spoke against you, the louder your testimony grew in my courts. There's a divine law the enemy still can't comprehend. The more he touches, the more I multiply. He tried to take one thing, I'll give you 7. He tried to close one door, I'll open 7 more. He tried to steal your joy. I'll turn your sorrow into a wellspring that refreshes nations. So when people ask, what changed? Tell them it wasn't luck, it was timing. Tell them it wasn't revenge, it was justice wrapped in mercy. Tell them that God remembered. Tell them that when you stopped begging for closure, heaven opened for favor. This is your turning point, the unseen moment where what was meant to destroy you starts defending you. Every loss, every betrayal, every sleepless night is being reworked into strength. The fire that burned you will now light your way. The grave that held you will now bear witness to resurrection. You will soon understand why I didn't let you retaliate. I was writing something too beautiful for rage to ruin. The story is turning, and this time it will end on your terms, not with revenge, but with revelation, redemption, renewal. Because I'm not just restoring what was taken, I'm upgrading what survived. The enemy touched your peace and thought it was over. He didn't realize that touching you meant setting me in motion. And now every plot, every insult, every delay is bowing in surrender to one truth. My child still stands. And because you still stand, everything around you must bow. There's a table being set right now, and it's not a metaphor. It's real, spiritual, deliberate, and personal. I'm preparing something in full view of every voice that doubted, every heart that betrayed, every shadow that laughed when you were down. They won't be destroyed. They'll be silenced, not because you shouted them down, but because your restoration will speak louder than their ridicule ever could. You've heard the line, I prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies, but you've never felt it like you're about to. This isn't revenge. This isn't spectacle. This is revelation. I'm not raising you up to embarrass them. I'm raising you up to expose me, to show the world that I defend quietly, that I restore thoroughly, that I crown slowly but permanently. Every seat at this table has purpose. The friend who walked away too early, their chair will remain empty, and it will preach a sermon of its own. The accuser who told lies so loud they became your reputation, they'll sit and watch as peace clothes you like a garment. The ones who tried to erase you will have to see that erasure doesn't work on what I've engraved. They'll have to watch you bloom in the same soil they cursed. Do you know why I set the table in front of them? Because the victory must be witnessed. Hidden redemption doesn't break generational shame, public resurrection does. I'm not making a spectacle of your pain, I'm making a stage for your purpose. This table isn't built of luxury, it's built of lessons. Every dish is seasoned with what you've learned. Patience, humility, wisdom, compassion. The cup they meant to poison you with is overflowing with anointing now. The same hands that once trembled in despair will lift blessings steady and unafraid. You will eat peace where you once ate panic. You will drink joy where you once drank bitterness. And when they see you smile again, not the practiced smile, but the real one, they will understand that grace is stronger than gossip. I'm not rushing this feast. It's being set slowly because I'm letting the aroma reach the ones who thought you'd never rise again. It's reaching the corners where envy sleeps. It's waking the very hearts that said you'd never recover. They will not be punished. They will be convicted, not by wrath, but by wonder. Because nothing disarms the enemy like watching you thrive without hate. There was a time when you begged me to defend you loudly. But if I had, you would have shared credit with your anger. You would have thought it was your strength, your clapback, your vengeance. I kept you quiet so the glory could be clean. Now when they see you, they won't say, they got lucky. They'll say, that had to be God. You won't need to announce your comeback. The atmosphere will. You won't have to prove your worth. The fruit will. You won't need to justify your past. The peace you carry will do that for you. And when you sit at that table, I want you to remember something. This is not about triumphing over them. It's about showing them what unbothered redemption looks like. You won't be gloating. You'll be glowing. The power of your peace will make them reconsider their weapons. Some of them will want forgiveness. Give it freely. That's how we end wars without swinging swords. I'm setting this table because legacy requires witnesses. The same audience that saw you in ashes must see you in abundance, not to exalt you, but to confirm that no one touches what's mine without awakening my defense. Every seat, every silence, every glance, all orchestrated for revelation. So don't worry about who's watching. Let them watch. Let them see how I handle what's holy. Let them see what restoration looks like in the life of someone who didn't fight back. Let them taste the peace they once tried to poison. And as you eat, as joy returns to your eyes, remember this. This table is not revenge. It's restitution. It's proof that grace finishes what pain began. It's me saying, look, this is what happens when you stay faithful in the furnace. You'll eat surrounded by those who swore you'd starve, and you'll feed others with the same hands that once trembled in hunger. That's how I write endings, not with noise, but with nourishment. Not with punishment, but with presence. Not with fear, but with fulfillment. The table is ready, child. Take your seat. The meal is peace. There's a kind of silence that even hell respects. It's the silence that follows victory, not the noisy kind that demands applause, but the sacred kind that doesn't need to prove anything. That's what you're walking into now. The noise of accusation, the hum of anxiety, the endless whisper of what-ifs, all of it is being drowned by the stillness of completion. This is the sound of justice, and it's quiet, not because nothing's happening, but because everything has already been handled. You don't need to raise your voice anymore. You don't need to defend your name. The truth has its own gravity now. It pulls everything false down until it collapses under its own weight. The enemy thrives on chaos. He measures power by reaction. Every time you fought back, he studied you. Every time you panicked, he learned what to press. But when you learned to stay calm, to pray when you wanted to argue, to rest when you wanted to rage, that's when hell got nervous. Because silence in the spirit is not weakness, it's strategy. It's how heaven fights. You think the battle ended when the noise stopped, but the victory began when you refused to match their energy. When you stopped defending yourself and let peace be your response, you disarmed the very spirit that sought to exhaust you. You starved it of attention. You robbed it of oxygen. You turned its power inward, and it imploded. Do you remember how you used to replay every word they said, every slight, every betrayal, over and over until it poisoned your joy? That's over now. That's what silence heals. Silence doesn't erase memory, it detoxes it. It takes the sting out. It transforms the narrative from, look what they did to me, into, look what God built from it. I'm proud of you for not taking every bait. I'm proud of you for learning that peace is not passivity. I'm proud of you for finally understanding that some fights don't deserve your fists, they deserve your stillness. Stillness is power. It's what I used to part seas. It's what I used to silence storms. It's what I used to wake the dead. And now it's what I'm using to lift you. The silence that shames hell isn't empty. It's full of presence, my presence. Every time you held your tongue, angels took notes. Every time you chose grace over gossip, heaven expanded your influence. Every time you refused to retaliate, you told hell, "You don't own my narrative anymore." That's what broke the cycle. Not fire, not fury, restraint. The enemy wanted you loud. He wanted you desperate for validation. He wanted you to defend yourself publicly so he could twist your words again. But you stayed silent, and now your silence has become your sermon. Your peace is preaching louder than your pain ever could. Listen, vindication doesn't need noise. It needs timing. You've already been vindicated, it just hasn't reached the headlines yet. And when it does, it won't come with fanfare. It'll come with fruit. People will start to see what couldn't be seen before. Doors that were locked will open without keys. Opportunities that ghosted you will return asking for your partnership. That's what divine silence births, not explanation, but evidence. And the most beautiful part, you won't even need to say, "I told you so." Because the peace you walk in will say it for you. The glow that comes from sleeping through storms will say it for you. The laughter that finally sounds real again will say it for you. That's how I shame hell, not by crushing enemies, but by crowning survivors. Not by exposing every liar, but by exalting every truth-teller. Not by noise, but by stillness. So don't rush to speak. Don't rush to prove. Let your calm be the commentary. Let your peace be the postscript. Let your life be the apology they'll never give. Because what's coming next is not an argument, it's an unveiling. The silence isn't empty, it's sacred. It's the sound of me saying, "It's done." You feel it, don't you? That strange, quiet joy rising from somewhere deep, the kind you can't explain, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. That's not coincidence. That's return. That's joy walking back into a place it once fled from. For too long you've been rehearsing survival. Now you're remembering how to live. This joy isn't loud. It doesn't burst through the door with fireworks. It tiptoes. It arrives humble, unassuming, like an old friend you thought you'd never see again. It doesn't ask if it's welcome, it knows it belongs. You thought the pain disqualified you from happiness, but I was only waiting until joy could come without conditions, until you could receive it without guilt, until you could laugh without fear of loss. There was a season when your heart was all walls, every smile calculated, every hope cautious, every "I'm fine," a quiet plea for reprieve. But I've been dismantling those walls one piece at a time, using grace as a hammer and time as my chisel. I wasn't punishing you. I was preparing you to feel again. I had to make sure your joy this time would not be fragile. I had to make sure you wouldn't need a perfect circumstance to stay peaceful. You used to think joy was something you had to chase, that it lived in goals, in approval, in outcomes. But joy is not a prize. It's a byproduct of trust. It grows naturally when fear finally starves. It's what happens when your soul exhales after holding its breath for years. It's the proof that even in the aftermath of chaos, you can still bloom. The enemy tried to convince you that joy was gone for good, that the laughter that once lived in you was buried with the people, the seasons, the dreams you lost. But joy isn't fragile, it's eternal. It only hides until the heart is ready to carry it again. I've been holding it for you. I never let it die. I just kept it safe until you healed enough to wear it like armor instead of using it like a mask. And now it's returning, not as fleeting happiness, but as heritage. Joy that doesn't depend on paychecks or praise. Joy that dances even when the outcome is unclear. Joy that doesn't disappear when the day ends because it isn't tied to circumstances. It's tied to me. You're not just feeling better, you're being restored. Do you see what's happening? The places that once triggered pain are now becoming altars. The same songs that made you cry now make you smile. The same streets that held memories of heartbreak now echo with peace. That's what redemption sounds like, laughter growing out of loss. You're stepping into a season where joy won't have to fight for room. It will flow. You'll wake up and realize you no longer need to rehearse gratitude. It will come naturally. The heaviness that clung to you will fall off without a fight. People will ask what changed, and you'll tell them the truth. Nothing outside, everything inside. Joy doesn't mean you'll never cry again. It means your tears won't taste like defeat anymore. It means sorrow no longer owns your nights. It means that even when you break again, you'll know where to bring the pieces. That's what makes this joy unshakable. It knows resurrection personally. I'm returning laughter to your house. The kind that fills rooms, the kind that shakes walls, the kind that reminds you you're alive, the kind that doesn't apologize for surviving, the kind that doesn't need an audience to exist. And the best part, you won't even realize when it started. You'll just notice one day that you're singing again, and this time the song won't be about pain. It'll be about presence. The world will call it recovery. Heaven calls it revival, because the return of joy is the sound of restoration finishing its work. So laugh, child. Laugh like the storm never stole your voice. Laugh like the grave didn't win. Laugh because the enemy spent everything he had to break you, and you still found a reason to dance. Joy has returned home, and it's not leaving again. You've come through fire, and now I'm pouring oil. Not the cheap kind the world sells, not the shallow glow of applause or the quick fix of comfort, but the kind that only heaven produces. The kind that comes from pressure, from pain, from the places you thought would end you. You've been crushed, yes, but not wasted. What came out of you under that weight is what I've been waiting for all along. Anointing. This isn't about titles or positions. Anointing isn't what you put on, it's what you become after the breaking. It's what leaks from the cracks the world mocked. It's what seeps out when you love again after betrayal, when you speak peace in the presence of chaos, when you forgive what no one apologized for. That's the oil I've been pressing out of you. Not the oil of religion, the oil of revelation. The enemy thought the fire would destroy you. He didn't know it was refining you. He thought he was burning your story. I was branding your purpose. He thought the heat was punishment. I knew it was purification. The fire didn't change your identity, it revealed it. Now, when people look at you, they won't see the smoke of what you survived. They'll see the shine of what I've placed inside you. Do you know why I let it get that hot? Because false gold melts easily, but real gold endures. I had to make sure that what you carry isn't imitation faith. You prayed for power. This is how it's made. Through the furnace of humility, through the ashes of surrender, through the flames of misunderstanding. Every trial was heat applied to purify what I planned to pour. And now the oil flows, not just for you, but through you. Because anointing isn't meant to be stored, it's meant to be shared. The world is starving for authenticity, and you, with your scars and your softness and your sacred stubbornness, are my answer to that hunger. You are proof that broken vessels still pour. The crushing birthed compassion. The waiting birthed wisdom. The silence birthed sensitivity. And together, they've become the oil that can heal others. That's why I didn't let you escape the process, because I needed what's inside you to be real. I couldn't let you offer imitation healing born from theory. I needed you to know the pain firsthand so that when you speak, the world hears me. There's an authority on you now that can't be learned, only lived. It's the kind of authority that doesn't raise its voice to command, it simply exists, and everything broken starts to bow. When you enter a room, peace will follow you. When you open your mouth, truth will cut through lies like light through fog. Not because you memorized the right words, but because you embodied them in fire. And this oil, this sacred flow, is untouchable. The enemy can't counterfeit it because he didn't pay for it. He didn't weep for it. He didn't wait for it. He didn't bleed for it. But you did. And that's why you carry it with reverence. From now on, everything you touch will shift. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because you've become a conduit of my presence. You'll speak, and heaviness will lift. You'll listen, and hearts will unburden. You'll simply be, and peace will find its way back into the room. That's what it means to walk anointed, to carry atmosphere, not ego. People will ask, how did you get this glow? And you'll smile, remembering the nights when you almost gave up, the prayers that felt unanswered, the fire that felt endless. You'll tell them the truth. This glow isn't mine. It's what remained after everything else burned away. You're not carrying trauma anymore. You're carrying transformation. You're not defined by what you endured. You're defined by what flowed from it. The oil didn't come cheap, and that's why it's holy. So wear it with humility. Walk with it carefully. And know this, every tear you cried, every moment you thought was wasted, every fire you thought would consume you was an altar. And from that altar, the oil was born. The enemy touched you thinking he'd end you, but now you walk anointed. And that anointing is the very proof that he failed. They thought it was over. They thought they got away with it, the gossip, the betrayal, the quiet cruelty they disguised as concern. They thought the chapters they wrote about you in secret would go unchallenged. But I was there. I heard every conversation you weren't invited to. I saw every smirk exchanged at your expense. I watched every subtle weapon disguised as kindness. The enemy thought he could break you quietly and walk away untouched. He didn't know that touching you meant touching me. He didn't know that the same hands that threw dirt on you were planting seeds for a harvest that would shame his entire strategy. He didn't know that the same betrayal he orchestrated would become the bridge I'd use to elevate you. The time for regret has come. Not because I'm sending wrath, but because I'm revealing truth. And truth, when it appears, burns hotter than judgment. When those who wounded you see what I'm doing now, when they see you standing, glowing, peaceful, unbothered, their regret will not sound like apology. It will sound like silence. They will avoid your name, not out of contempt, but out of conviction. They will replay every word they said and feel the sting of revelation that they weren't mocking weakness, they were mocking destiny. They weren't tearing down a person, they were touching a prophecy. They weren't rejecting you, they were rejecting what I was building through you. And here's the part they never understood. I never needed you to defend yourself, because I never lose what's mine. I've been letting time do what vengeance could never accomplish, revelation. Time exposes motives. Time humbles arrogance. Time brings clarity that words could never force. And now time has matured your pain into wisdom and their pride into weight. Don't look for apologies, child. Look for fruit. Apologies are easy. Transformation takes proof. Some of them won't say sorry, but their silence will confess everything. Some will try to reappear, hoping proximity will erase the past. You don't need to reject them. You just need to remember what they taught you. Forgiveness doesn't mean access. Grace doesn't mean ignorance. You can love them and still guard your peace. Do you know what their regret will really be? Not that they hurt you, but that they underestimated you. That they laughed at someone who was still in process. That they mistook your humility for insignificance. That they didn't realize the one they overlooked was carrying favor strong enough to rebuild nations. Their regret will not be for what they said. It will be for what they missed. Because while they were plotting your downfall, I was building your platform. While they were busy talking, I was busy transforming. While they tried to bury you, I was teaching you how to bloom in the dark. And now they'll have to watch the harvest grow out of the very ground they cursed. That's how I work. I don't humiliate your enemies. I educate them. I don't destroy them. I disarm them. I don't return insult for insult. I return revelation for ignorance. And revelation always hurts more, because it leaves them staring at what could have been if they had chosen love instead of envy. Don't gloat. Don't harden. Just stand. Stand with the quiet dignity of someone who knows they were never fighting people. They were fighting principalities. And now those principalities are trembling, because they realize that every weapon they formed against you became an altar of glory in my hands. This is the moment where regret ripples through the camp of your enemies, not because I've struck them down, but because I've lifted you up. And lifting you is the loudest sermon I could ever preach. You are the proof that touching what's anointed always backfires. You are the evidence that betrayal is temporary, but favor is permanent. They'll regret it, not in hatred, but in hindsight. Not because they lost power, but because they lost proximity. They'll see your peace, your laughter, your healed scars, and they'll realize too late that what they called weakness was really worship. That's why you don't have to look back. The lesson's already written. The enemy's greatest regret won't be that he fought you. It will be that he ever thought he could. Do you feel it now, that shift in the air? That subtle stillness that doesn't feel like fear anymore, but focus. That's what rising feels like. It doesn't come with trumpets or applause. It comes with clarity. It comes with peace that doesn't ask permission. It comes with the realization that you no longer need to explain who you are, because the evidence is visible even in your silence. You've been walking through the valley so long that you forgot what the mountaintop feels like. But look around, the view is changing. The heaviness is lifting. The voices that once told you it was over have gone quiet. They're watching now, trying to make sense of how you're still standing. Let them. This part isn't about proving anything. It's about becoming. This is the season where resurrection stops being a story and starts being your reality. You are no longer the person who was begging to survive. You are the one who has learned how to reign. Not with arrogance, but with awareness. Not with pride, but with presence. You've walked through enough storms to know that real strength doesn't need to shout. It just breathes, and everything around it aligns. You thought I was rebuilding you back to where you were. No, I'm raising you higher than before. You're not returning to normal, you're entering new. What's ahead of you is not restoration of the old, it's creation of something that's never existed. You are not just healed, you are holy ground. The pain purified you. The silence shaped you. The breaking baptized you. The oil that flows from you now carries authority that only comes from fire. This rise will look different from the world's version. The world rises to dominate. You rise to illuminate. You will lead not by shouting, but by radiating peace in a culture addicted to noise. You will build not from revenge, but from redemption. You will move through rooms like a quiet revolution, the kind that restores instead of destroys. People won't understand at first. That's okay. They don't have to. You're not performing anymore, you're walking in purpose. Every closed door was rehearsal for this authority. Every betrayal was education. Every delay was calibration. Now your confidence is clean. It's not built on validation, it's built on vision. You've stopped begging to be seen because you've realized that light doesn't ask to shine. It just does. And this is what I want you to hear. Your rising is not revenge, it's revelation. I'm not exalting you to prove your haters wrong. I'm elevating you to prove my promise right. You are stepping into visibility not because you chased it, but because you're ready to handle it. You're not rising to get even, you're rising to get others free. The same fire that once threatened to consume you will now warm the ones still trapped in it. Do you remember how you begged me to take the pain away? Now you'll use it as power. Do you remember how you asked me to make them see? Now they'll see without you having to speak. Do you remember how you said, Lord, if you just get me out of this, I'll never waste it? That's what this is, the promise fulfilled. You didn't waste it. You waited. You worshipped. You learned. And now you're walking proof that waiting never weakens, it refines. This rise will be quiet, steady, undeniable. The same people who saw you cry will see you crowned. The same ones who doubted your faith will witness your fruit. The same enemy who tried to crush your confidence will choke on the dust you left behind. Not because you hate them, but because you've outgrown them. You don't belong to the battlefield anymore. You belong to the kingdom. You are rising, not as a survivor, but as a steward. Not to be served, but to serve. This time, you'll lead with humility instead of hunger. You'll carry peace like a weapon. You'll walk with grace that doesn't flinch. You'll speak with the calm of someone who's already seen the end and knows it ends well. The rise of the redeemed isn't a moment, it's a movement. And you are the proof that resurrection is not theory, it's testimony. So stand tall even if your knees still shake. Breathe deep, step forward. Because heaven is watching, the earth is shifting, and your story, the one written in pain, refined in fire, and sealed in grace, is finally being revealed for what it is. Not a comeback story, a kingdom story, a revelation of redemption in motion. Now listen carefully, child, because this is where everything comes full circle. This is not the end. This is the unveiling. The quiet after the war, the calm after the storm, the steady rhythm after years of holding your breath. You've made it through every kind of breaking, the kind that empties you, the kind that humbles you, the kind that rebuilds you into something the world has never seen before. You are no longer surviving. You are reigning softly, steadily, silently, like peace that's learned to stand its ground. Look at your hands. The same ones that trembled when they were empty are now glowing with purpose. The same heart that once begged for rest is now a well of strength. Every scar has become scripture, a living testimony that nothing the enemy did could stop what I planted. You thought you lost too much, but I never take without intention. Everything you lost was either weight or weakness. Everything that stayed was you refined, awakened, unshakable. Now the enemy watches from a distance, and for the first time he understands. He should have left you alone. He should have never touched you. He should have never whispered your name in mockery. because every attack became an altar, every betrayal became a bridge, every loss became leverage. What he thought would bury you became your soil, and from that soil you grew thorns that protect and petals that heal. This is what divine justice looks like. Not smoke and thunder, but peace that lasts. Not revenge, but restoration that embarrasses the enemy by outliving his intentions. His greatest punishment is your peace. His greatest regret is your radiance. His greatest failure is that he made you run straight into my arms. You've spent so long wondering if I was proud of you. Hear me now, I am. Not because you were flawless, but because you were faithful. You didn't always get it right, but you didn't walk away. You loved when it was easier to hate. You stayed soft when the world rewarded hardness. You prayed when no one was listening. You didn't quit, even when silence felt like betrayal. That's what moved heaven. That's what made hell tremble. I told you the enemy would regret touching you, and now you see why. Because touching you didn't destroy you. It activated everything I placed in you. You found depths of grace, resilience, and vision you didn't know existed. You learned how to discern, how to rest, how to rise without resentment. You stopped begging for blessings and became one. You stopped chasing purpose and started embodying it. This is where the story shifts from deliverance to dominion. You will no longer live reactive, waiting for attacks to end, waiting for people to change, waiting for doors to open. You've been given authority now. You open them, you command peace, you shift rooms, you set atmospheres. The anointing that came from your crushing has turned you into a walking contradiction. Gentle yet unbreakable, humble yet powerful, calm yet unstoppable. And I will walk with you still, not as the rescuer from the storm, but as the voice in the calm. You don't need me to fight for you the same way anymore, because now you've learned to fight with me. You've become fluent in the language of faith, not the desperate kind that pleads, but the confident kind that creates. So this is my final word over you, the seal to everything we've walked through together. You are finished, not like an ending, but like a masterpiece. You are whole, not because nothing broke, but because everything healed in the right place. You are free, not because the battle disappeared, but because it no longer defines you. Let them see your peace and wonder how. Let them hear your laughter and remember who they touched. Let them watch you thrive and understand too late what heaven already knew. The enemy never stood a chance. Walk now, not as the wounded, but as the chosen. Not as the survivor, but as the sign. Not as the broken, but as the builder. Because this radiant calm, this sacred strength, this divine stillness that follows the fire is the sound of heaven's revenge. The enemy didn't just fail to destroy you. He helped reveal you. And that is the regret he will carry forever.